Alright, looks like not sure anyone's waiting here, so I'm just going to start going. This is welcome to my Thanksgiving streamathon. This year I'm going to be doing one of the longer sets as usual. I'm going to be doing a four-parter for Hancock Tower. My visit to Hancock Tower in 2007 with additional stops at WB Tower and Shepherdstown Junction. For those who don't know, Hancock Tower was a manned interlocking tower on the CSX Cumberland subdivision. It closed in 2007, but before its closure, I heard that the weekend operator was a new guy that was cool with letting people in. All you had to do was go and knock. I did. I got in. I got interior photos. You've probably seen them if you know my stuff. They're up. Although I did redo those photos at some point, they really weren't done well, and I'm going to be going through them in a more detailed fashion now, adding to what I already have with the blog post. Hopefully I'll be able to swap out the photos at some point, but the ones I have are okay. They're not awful, but especially in the case of WB Tower, I've learned some of the actual. Since then, I've learned, I've gotten a model board, a diagram, stuff like that. So we will see how that goes. Let me just get a couple things updated here. I just realized I can pull up the North American Interlocking Towers site is working again, so I can use that as a reference. Michigan, come on, where's Maryland? There it is. Let me just get these WB pictures up. All right. We'll check that out in a second. And I got the Hancock ones later. I have, unfortunately, I'm trying to, there's one specific photo, but I've always, it's available on RR Picture Archives, and that website looks like it's thrown a shit again. And it's going to make it a little bit longer and harder to get some of the information. For some reason, I had only one of the two that I needed. Is this the one? No, that's not the, God damn, I need 4. No. There it is. I'm trying to find see if I have a local copy of the file. I usually do, but I'm not sure I do this time. Somehow I seem to have moved it or deleted it or whatever. Anyway, let's get going here. I think I have the WB stuff set up. If not, I'll move it over here just to make a second copy. WB Towers in West Brunswick. Yeah, it is in Maryland. The CSX, the Baltimore and Ohio main line, does a lot of jumping around. CSX is CSX is an interesting thing of having yards in weird locations, and Brunswick Yard, although there's not quite as much traffic as there used to be there. Brunswick Yard, Cumberland, Connellsville, they're all just sort of in the Willard. They're kind of in the middle of nowhere. Although I guess Cumberland makes a lot of sense. Anyway. So, just so you know where it is, here's the junction of the old main line and the Metropolitan sub, which goes to D.C. Old main line, of course, runs to Baltimore. That's the original part of the B&O. The reason, again, the B&O exists was because Baltimore, although it has a harbor, has no inland waterway. So they built this railroad to access first the Potomac and the C&O Canal, and then eventually they just kept building the railroad, trying to get to the Ohio River. Currently, West Brunswick Yard is effectively the terminal yard for the Mark Brunswick line service. It's probably one of the more intense uses of the yard. There's no hump. Used to be a lot of coal staging for coal, but it's the decline in coal traffic that's really hit the yard pretty hard. This is where most of the Brunswick line sets are, except for a few that are stored at Martinsburg. There's an old roundhouse, and here's your commuter rail parking lot. The station is the yard is one of those things that was between the main tracks, so your commuter rail stations are split between the two. Is in the middle of the right of way there. So we'll just get this rolling. So WB, so up and through the 2000s, the B&O mainline had a substantial amount of manned interlocking locations. The two biggest areas were in the east, including West Brunswick, which would have control over Harper's Ferry, NA Tower in Martinsburg, W Tower in West Cumbo, R Tower in Miller, and then Hancock Tower, which we're going to be getting today. In the early 2000s, R West Cumbo, R, and NA closed by 2003, leaving WB at West Brunswick and Hancock. West Brunswick was the last to close in 2013. Hancock would, after hanging on for a number of years, finally closed in 2007. It was notable for being at the east end of the surviving section of CPLs. There was a section of CTC between Cumberland and Hancock. At Hancock, it devolved into more of a ABS system and that's why you had all those towers, R, West Cumbo, NA at Martinsburg, and then there's a lot of Rule 251 in that. With the coming of the MARC service, that sort of was the impetus to CTC everything between Hancock and West Brunswick, and then finally with just general pole line elimination and stuff like that, the rest of it died over the ensuing years. So, as much as the B&O liked to be a GRS railroad, West Brunswick was a Union switch and signal interlocking machine with pneumatic point machines. I think one of the reasons it did hold on this long is because the area in there was prone to flooding, and the pneumatic point machines were a little more resistant to that. You could sort of dry them out, and then they just keep working again. So here we have. Let me just see. So I'm going to have to, unfortunately, until I have that diagram popped up, this is the... So here we have what the tower looks like, or looked like as of 2020. It has been preserved. I'm not sure it's open to the public yet, but this is what was there. We're very lucky it did not catch fire, but I'll dive into that later. I need to check my properly labeled stuff here. So this is going to be I'm pretty sure this is the 19 switch. So there's the 19. That's the 15, and then this is going to be the 17. So this is what they call a USNS style CP valve unit. Inside that little oblong tub is where they have the valves that control the pneumatic piston on the point machines. This is sort of the safety critical component. The piston's going to just do whatever the air tells it to do. So this is the thing that took USNS a while in the early 20th century to get these right, so that they would not just randomly throw into a train. And they did have that problem in the early years of power signaling. Both USNS and GRS had a variety of issues of the lever in the tower not corresponding to what the power switch was doing. This was not necessarily a problem with the mechanical, because it was physically linked to a thing. When you had solving the power problem, the power operation problem was a big challenge in those early years for the major signal vendors. Alright, sorry, I'm just getting my stuff organized here. Come on. Here we have I wish I could show you a good diagram of it, but like I said, it's currently unavailable. I don't have one up. The WB tower, like I said, it had it had active components on both the north and south side. I did a whole blog post on this that shows photos around the area and eventually gets to it. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. This is the one. This is the 24R signal. Again, like a lot of older interlocking installations, this had all manner of multiple dwarfs. So you, like, a route would have not just an entry and an exit. You'd have like an outer signal, an intermediate signal. They used lots of little signals to reduce ultimately reduce the amount of relays. Because the more signals you had, the more you could kind of do with the mechanical locking in the machine instead of the relay logic. They said this is 24R. Yeah, this is the 24R signal. So just so you know, we have an outer main track, we have an inner sort of siding track, there's a ladder here, there to there, then it goes over to this yard track here, which then splits to one other yard track that goes to the mark yard, and then this other sort of S-curve track that goes into the other end of the freight yard there. So today you would just have signals at each end. Back then, you'd have a signal here, then there's like another one there, there's another one there. So this is going to be right by the grade crossing, sort of right there. In fact, I can just show you. If we go here to Street View and check on, go back. Oh, we're not going to be able to go back in time sufficiently, it looks like. Only to 2021. Although they did keep that one little signal. So now they have two there, and you have this little intermediate home to get you across into this sort of ladder there. That crossover there was also not present with the original WB installation. So here we have the rear of the 24R signal. That would be pulling lever pulling one of the USNS levers, crank levers to the right. Now, despite being a USNS interlocking machine and switches, these are still GRS CPLs. USNS did make CPLs in this style, I believe, for the Washington Terminal project when that was resignaled from whatever it used to be. But that project was big enough for USNS to actually go and make the castings for that. Today, as of last thing, USNS was the only one. They weren't selling new big CPLs, but they were selling CPL dwarfs. I think Amtrak might, if they weren't using whatever, they're getting refurbs from that. So we have the number 17 switch. This would be the one, if I can point to it on the thing here. I believe it is this one right there. Now, a lot of these pictures, I do hope to be able to use the original names, especially since there's no chance of me being able to go and get new photos of it, because as I said, it was all ripped out a while ago. So see, this has the 17. See, now I don't know what's up here. If this is 17, what's that other one? Sorry, one second. I'm trying to find where the 19 switch is. I think the first one wasn't this. I think this is for the 19 switch. Yeah, that one right there. I'm pretty sure that's the one it would be. So anyway, here's a picture of the machine when it's actually in service. It's an older style, what I would call like an electro-pneumatic machine, so not a Model 14. This is an older, one of the older styles, probably in the early 1806, something like that. So again, another one of the CP style CP valves, and the piston, air piston from the 17 switch. And here you just have another angle of the CP, the 17. This is the 17 switch point machine. This is a USNS style A5 point machine. There was an A1 and there's an A10. A10s are still made. They're for transit use. They got the two pistons. The A1 has like a dome, has like a sheet, a domed, like a no, not domed, like a Quonset hut sort of cover. So this cover is this cover here is sort of square. Imagine one, instead of being squarular, it was a semicircle, like an arch, piece of sheet metal. Here we have both. Here's the air cylinder. There's an air feed into both sides. This back here is actually a 1990s install point heater. A lot of CSX does not have most of their lines in this area don't have good winterization. So after getting enough trains sort of stuck, Mark, I think, paid for some to point heat certain interlockings. Trying to see what I should do here. Okay. Here we have the 15 switch with its own, again, one of the point heater terminal blocks. There's the 15 switch. So a diverging move will diverge onto you're going on that S-yard lead, and then you immediately have another switch point choice there. Let's see if this has come up again. Or is this just going to be down all night? That switch might actually be gone. So we had one, and there was another one like right there. And I don't see it. I think that it's gone now. I don't know where it went though. 17, the 15 would have been like right there. And I think that there were just two tracks coming out here instead of the one. In fact, there's the second one right there. It just sort of peters off. Or yeah, see, they turn it into a hand throw right there. But that was an interlocked switch coming out of that. And then here we have the CP valve for the A5 switch. Now, these are right at the end of the parking spots. If you weren't careful, you would just hit this with your car. So from a photo point of view, it was a very accessible interlocking. I probably should have taken more photos of everything that was there, but I did not do the greatest job with that. Let me just check thing here. Boom, where was I? Okay, here we go. Oh wait, I know what I'll incorporate that little reflector post. That's more interesting. Yeah, if I had been more on my game, I would have had all angles of all of these, full 360. I just was not up to standards. I would have tried to get, if not full 360s, then multiple angles of those point machines. I think I got 2 of each, but really should have done a lot more work into this. They were always there and so accessible. And the places, I lived in the area. I just didn't drive out here that much to get photos. I could have gone any number of times, and I went now, and I figured, it's done. And then 4 years later, the tower gets closed, and I just wasn't, again, one of those. Definitely, I could have done a better job with this. Now, at West Brunswick, there's always a bunch of people. So if you're making the loops on these things, you're going to be more likely to be noticed. Here we have the same 15 switch for the westbound angle. And here we have WB tower itself. And yeah, you can see there's two different things. So these are the 16 signals there in front of it. It had 3 signals that were on that 16 lever, and that which one illuminated was going to be depending on the switch position. So where do I have this? I know I have them labeled somewhere in here. The tall one is the 16 RC, and the short one is the 16 RC, and the tall one is the 16 RB, and that one in the back is the 16 RA. So here I have WB tower, and the 16 RB, and the 16 RC. That truck probably belonged to the operator there. One of those smaller, back when pickup trucks weren't gargantuan. Back when I had this, when I first did these photos, I didn't have the diagram, so I only had the switch numbers that were sort of available. So there's the 16 RA and then 2 additional signals. That mast in the foreground looks new, and that's because something happened to the old mast. It was rusted, fell down, got hit, I don't know, and they came in, and that was why I was sort of hopeful. There's a lot of stuff in CSX where they'll throw up a brand new position light, or before they got rid of them all, they'd throw up a brand new position light, like, why would they invest in it if they're just going to take it down? Then they would immediately take it down. It happened a bunch of times. It was just they didn't want to, they couldn't screw with the signaling without, major costs involved. So there we have what is this? Okay, here we go. The 24R and the 16RA. What's that other one? Oh, wait, hold on. The 28R is the mast. the 16RA and the 24R. So 16RA, that one. 20. I already forgot it. 24R, and then the 28R. How many IRJ? It looks like I have all 3 IRJs in slated rail joints. And here we have another a closer view of West Brunswick Tower. I forget when it got its siding. It got its siding around 2000, which is definitely helpful in its long-term preservation. Probably kept some of the rot away. It would sit here. After it closed in 2013, arrangements were made with the local Railroad Historical Society to preserve it. The problem is that it's sort of in the middle of the yard and had to be moved, and not a lot happened involving it for the better part of it, until 2020. Through 2020, and it only moved in 2021 or 2022. So we're lucky that was able to get the job done. I mean, I was able to get inside because the whole bottom was unsecured. That thing was one bum lighting a match away from just going up in smoke. Regarding the B&O not having commuter rail, I believe that is, I think it's true, but at the same point, I know that those stations had service. Pointer Rocks, until it was de-staffed a few years ago during COVID, was like was one of the longest continually staffed railroad stations in the world, having gone online in the 1830s or some such. And it had passenger service. I just wouldn't necessarily you'd call it commuter. I think they had local service to wherever the local train went. So I don't know what the service was, but those stations did have local trains serving them without interruption since the 1830s. Again, sorry for the somewhat clunky start there. So at least I was able to use my zoom. I was definitely, in 2017, I was very wary. Because one of the, downsides, one of the pitfalls of the manned towers, there's a guy there. So I can't go necessarily running around, really, going on the right of way. Because that guy was going to be, you're either got one of two things, like, oh, hey, you interested in all that? Why don't you come up? Or like the cop, like the railroad, he yells at you or something like that. So here I managed to get up all 4 of the westbound signals here. 2 of the yard leads, whatever this track is, the 16RA, and then the sort of the siding track, and then the main track right there. Again, that's a brand new mast. Brand new. I do have photos of the old one, and it was just rusty and decrepit. I'm not sure I have a picture of the old one anywhere. But let's see what I named this. Let's see here. There we go. Here we have some. I guess. Oh, these guys are getting fueled up. That's a fuel truck right there. A lot of. There's a lot of assumptions. Oh, you can also see sort of in the back some of the old gray fleet. They turned a bunch of those into yard slugs without repainting them. So a lot of people assume that they all that every all the fueling ops are done at the fuel pads and stuff. And they do have a fuel pad at Brunswick, but here we have a tanker truck filling them up, which is not uncommon. A lot of times you'll see home heating oil trucks show up because it's the same thing. And they can also use off-road. I mean, it's a tax situation of in terms of heating fuel versus other stuff. So okay. So anyway, I believe that six. Let's see. I'm trying to read some of these other numbers. 2641. I can't see anything further back. So I think the first one's going to be a GP40. 6151. That's always fun. What did they say? 2641. I do have that CSX roster up. Yep. 6151 is a GP40. And 26 would be a GP38. Okay, so that checks out. And then here we have WB Tower with its looks like a emergency. They have a generator in that other hut. That's in the CSX. So for a while, CSX was painting painting a lot of its wooden structures in the gray and blue, and that sort of after they ran out of structures, that sort of came to an end. And here we have all four dwarfs, but only some of the mast. Oh, but it's not all the. Oh, it is all three of them. One second. 16 RA plus 16 RB. Oops. Can find multiple ways to say the same thing, even though I already have sort of have substantially the same thing earlier. It's good enough. And then here we have the 16RC or RB, and then the 28R mast behind it. So we have 16 RB and then the 28R mast. This was in August 11th, 2007. So it would have been a pretty, I mean, it might have been comfortable, but it was still pretty hot. You can see again how new that signaling stuff, and it's all beautifully painted. The signaling crews went all out for the old stuff, even when it only had a little bit of time remaining. And here we have our 16RC. This is a very interesting CPL dwarf setup. You can just see how most of them will have the little. You can see it in this one. Will have the bottom part, even for the orbital, even if it's not used. And the 16RC has nothing there. It's just a pure head. So make of that what you will. Now this one I might not want to crop quite so heavily. I'm already under the minimum size for me to even resize it. So maybe I can do something with this here, make it a little bit bigger. Otherwise I'm just throwing resolution away for no apparent reason. That looks a bit better. And here we just have another slightly different perspective on the 16RC. So this one I am going to crop a little more closely. And then we have the 16RA and the 24R, along with an approach temporary speed restriction board. Those yellow boards. The next one would be sorry, that's not an APSR. That's a I don't know if that's only approach speed limit. Hold on. It'll be in the signal rule book somewhere. Oh wait, that's the Conrail one. Well, that loads. Let me try to see if I can get the other stuff. Yeah, temporary reduced speed sign. End of speed restriction. Yellow is approach. Wait, hold on. Okay, the one with the slash is the approach work zone stop. Yellow is approach temporary, or is the start of the temporary reduced speed. Okay, sorry. You get the one with the slash is either comes before the yellow board, which is the TSR board, or it'll come before the stop board. So that's an approach TSR board. Oh, it could be actually, yeah. That's not an approach TSR board. That's a TSR board. It's like the Diamond S in NORAC. That's likely because the crossovers at WB were always in such garbage shape. So that's probably a TSR for the crossovers. You'll see those. I think you'll see those later, and how they're not looking great. And just another angle on that 24, that 16 RB. This one's interesting that it's mounted on switch pipe. Those are, I believe that's pipeline mounting or pipeline pipe for mechanically works points, and that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's the same sort of concrete footing. So it'd be interesting. It looks like they repurposed switch pipe for the signal mounts. That's those little things that I didn't notice on my first pass there. If you're wondering what that D is, that was for the FRA's delay and block rule. You would apply these. These were on distant signals. This seems to be a little bit overzealous, as I guess it's a distant to a signal within the same interlocking. I don't think the regulation actually calls for that, but whatever. CSX slapped Ds on pretty much all sorts of stuff back in the day. And then here we have this sort of wide image of the 28R with its rail joints and tracks for the yard tracks. And then downtown Brunswick is behind it. And here we have a picture from the grade crossing. Remember, this grade crossing is used by commuters, or there's also an access to the C&O Trail in the Potomac River. So a lot of people are always in this lot, whether or not it's commuting time, whether or not it's a weekend. There's always people buzzing about. So that's another reason I really didn't go whole hog on running around the interlocking. I would find where I could get a zoom shot and then try to get that in. There we go. Let's try to get in some stuff there. Oh, wait. What's going on here? Okay. Okie doke. I want to get rid of the blue, not the red. There it goes. Excuse me. Remember I said that's a hand throw switch outside of interlocking limits. Today, when they rebuilt this, that became a power crossover. And you can see some of the marked GP40WH. Those were replaced by the Motive Power MP36s. So let's see here. We have WB Tower. Okie dokie. Second set is done. Let's get these dealt with real quick. Might go a little over time today because I have 220 photos and I want to get through them done in 4 days. So it's going to be a little bit more than we normally do. Any questions? Yeah, Toledo sub and then a few odds and ends. Like that Diamond Crossing near the Port of Baltimore. Some siding exit signals still have CPLs. Of course, Staten Island Railway, Washington Terminal. Amtrak installed new CPL dwarfs at Baltimore Penn Station. They put in 2 of them there. They have some distant signals, diamond crossings, drawbridges. All sorts of stuff that it's sort of here, there, and everywhere. So, like I said, why was there a speed restriction on main track? I don't even know if it's track 1 or 2. I could have pulled up a thing here. One second. I can pull up the employee timetable for us to all look at. This is going to be the... So at some point they switched the division post between the Cumberland sub and the Met. It used to be at like Harper's Ferry, and they moved it to Point of Rocks. So here's what I told you. There's West Cumbo, Cherry Run, Hancock. Those were, in 1999, those were still all towers. By now, it's just Hancock and WB, but that's still way more towers than we'd any right to expect on this sort of track. Capital sub. So in this case, the division point was Weaverton, which is west of that. Which is west of WB. They said they moved it now to Point of Rocks. But I'm going to go and pull it up. So here's WB Tower. You can't really see it very well. The diagram isn't even right. And the only Conrail was nice because when it was a staff tower, it would have that M with a circle on it, indicating it was manned. And then CSX, it's like you got to read through the lines. Like this one, at least it's nice. It says operator at WB Channel 8. I think they have one for Hancock, but they had towers where you have to read in the special instructions to learn that, oh yeah, there's an operator there. Anyway, here we have what I need is like which track things are. Oh, the timetable tells me. This is track 1. BNO uses an even odd system, so that's the main track is 1, the next rickety-looking track is 3. And this track 3 will run all the way to Weaverton Interlocking, which is effectively the west end of the Brunswick Yard Complex, the east end being East Brunswick. When WB Tower was open, it initially would have CTC control of East Brunswick. I don't know about Point of Rocks. I bet it would have Point of Rocks. And then it would have Weaverton and Harper's Ferry. When the CTC went in, when there was a lot of resignaling in the early days, all that, everything except WB proper went to the dispatcher. Up before 1992, the Metropolitan sub, the Mark line, the Brunswick line that goes through suburban DC, that was all ABS 251, and you had an interlocking in Germantown interlocking. That was remote FN tower at the Y, the DCY, or sorry, QN tower. And then the next tower they had was something that controlled pointer rocks, and I bet that was going to be WB. There just wasn't a lot of CTC. In 1992, they put in a bunch of CTC, including East Brunswick. Anything that's the newest B&O CPLs on that line were installed in 1992 when they expanded Mark service. They got the state to probably pay for a full resignaling. And then they got the state to pay enough for another resignaling less than 20 years later. Go figure. Man, look how wavy that track is. This is all restricted speed, though. All those signals, I think, mainly gave restricting. Here is the WB tower order hoop, order forks. I have no clue the last time this was used. Probably up through the 1992 resignaling for sure. I don't think the train order forks are still there. In theory, they could have used them. I mean, they could have used them whenever, but they really weren't doing a lot of train order hooping. I mean, there's two forks. This is from the age of caboose. Today, the tower has been moved across to the hill across from the tracks. Like I said, it's there. I don't know what the timeline is to open it. There's some breweries in town, so I might go check it out. We have sort of a front backlit version. Looks like you just call it WB front, so I'll go with that. Uh-oh. Okay. I think that I didn't screw anything up there. Yeah, things are okay. Sorry, I was worried that I'd hit the I'd gotten stuff out of order. Here we have the 28R displaying a clear signal indication for an approaching train. That's always fun. again, that's the 28R. How was that in the original one? See, I'm missing certain things. How does that look? Oh, did I get rid of that already? I wonder if I should just brighten it just a tad. Alright, that's fine. Here we have the hand throw switch. This is now, again, interlocked. And they extended the interlocking. They put the new cantilever mast over there. In the back, we have, it looks like Mark 66. They still have one on property, which I think is 68, or they did. They used in rescue service and maintenance of way, but they bought some NJT GP40 PH2As, -2As for that same sort of purpose. This is not a numbered switch, so it's just the what did I call this before? Get this dealt with there. All right. Here we have the air plant and the generator hut, the generator shed. There's always a lot of effort to try to keep the air dry in these things. Compressed air loves having moisture issues. With all the adiabatic cooling and whatnot. So, in this case, most of these USNS things, they usually have them in the basement, but I bet in the lower level it's all relays, and there is, I guess there is a basement there. But this is where they have, that's going to be where your condensate goes. There's your main air reservoir tanks. This is probably the dryer. I don't know if it is, but that looks like it's going to be a chemical, some sort of drying unit. And there's a generator behind it. The air plants are almost as interesting, are a separate yet very equally interesting part of the whole thing. The air plants on the PR main line were really involved. When I got in there to take pictures of those, some of them would have all sorts of stuff, drying things, manifolds, reservoir tanks, all that stuff's a real lost art. The PR really went into that, spared no expense. But even after the towers were demolished decades ago, they would actually just keep the same little air compressor huts and air plant that they had back, ever since the A5, the point machines went in. Here we have the 28R in the background with its clear, and then the train order forks in the foreground. Here we have WB Tower, again, sort of an eastbound angle. Again, you can see I was very careful not to have the guy come out and give me a hard time. What the heck? There we go. Most of the names I'm using are still pretty bad, so... Of course, I would always get a bunch of good photos of this stuff going through here on the train. I do have a blog post, a full blog post that has all these photos and describes everything about it, stuff. So this is going to be westbound angle. So I urge you to go and take a look at it, the blog post at some point. This looks like going to be one that has. Do I even? What's going on here? Did I like? It looks like I cut this photo because it was slightly soft. Again, this is a big reason why I love going through these, because I can find a whole variety of photos that at the time didn't make the cut, but were ultimately very, still very useful. Okay. Oh, I actually can see the full numbers of these. 22.99 and 64.56. So I can go back to my previous CSX thing. So it's 22.99 and 64.56. 64.56. And I have that second one. Access. Yep. 26.41. I'm not gonna lie. That's probably good. It's probably more interesting than the hand throw switch there. I'm gonna try to get more of those engines in that picture. This is I did a recent blog post on electrically locked switches. I don't know. Again, if I had that diagram, I would be able to tell if that E-lock was something controlled from the tower, but it's not inside interlocking limits, so I bet it's not. But that right there's your electric lock. There's a whole little system of how that works, and then there's your circuit controller that breaks the track circuit or does point detection. This would be the west one. And then I add that to all the CSX crap. Boy, that's going to be a long file name. And the fuel truck is still doing its thing down there. Good enough. And here I was wondering why we had a different one. Maybe I cut one because I had this zoom picture of it. The things I would used to be an idiot about. Yeah, that was a separate photo. I just cut the I cut the one of the that was close. I'd love to have a town that actually gets, offers to bribe the railroad to what is that, like, keep up a vintage signal, because they know what to what degree people would show up to photo it. Keep forgetting that there's that TSR board in the picture. Now I would end up riding through this interlocking in both directions. Sometimes I would just go to Chicago and come back on the cap. Other times I would go out on the cap to then come back via like the Cardinal. So I had a bunch of I have pictures of both directions going through here. So here we have the train order stand without the signal hovering behind it, upstaging it in the background. That's always nice. Train order fork westbound. All right, good enough for you. Wonder if someone made off with that. I hope the museum got that, but I bet that seems like one of those things the employees would want. So that's normally where we would end, but I'm going to go through this photo here because they want to transfer to the other side of the interlocking. So this will be a slightly longer one. Let's see if we have any questions from the folks. Anything here? Not particularly. Guess this wasn't the best thing to do for a Sunday, but I need to be here all week to get it all done, so that's what it's going to be. So here we have the eastbound side windows. It's definitely a lot of stuff going on there. When I came in, they hadn't gutted everything out of the operator's floor, but they'd gotten rid of a lot. Now, it is interesting that this is one of the few towers that did not suffer from tower window syndrome. They put in pretty nice, whatever windows they put in were nice. They were either equal to what had been there. Not the equal, but like they were pretty good. They weren't little tiny cheapo replacement ones. Tower window syndrome is where you'd have a tower and these big old double drop sashes would be like replaced by a tiny little like half-sized. One of these would be like a replacement window and no other windows. And weirdo crap ball siding. Then here we have our triumvirate of signals, eastbound signals with the 28R being clear. That'll work. I'll drop this down a little bit. So here we have the 16RA, the 24R, and the 28R. Somewhat little zoom of the oh, we got the, which switch is that? Right there. That's the 15 switch CP valve. Or is it? That's the 15, and that's the 17. Yeah, it's the 17. If I'm already zooming in, I might as well get this all. So that's going to be the 16RA, and this one is signaled through. So the train's coming out of that. That's not the track. Is that track? That's not track 3. Yeah, 16RA. The 3 switch can actually get a clear signal indication to go down to Weaverton. I think I can get to clear, or at least an approach. But this guy definitely, because he's coming in, he's good. That's gonna be. I guess that's a slow speed crossover. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that track 3. I guess it's circuited, but it didn't have any intermediates between there and Weaverton. So here we have the 16RA. The 17 switch. Then here we have the 24R. So sometimes when you see that overhead, the 12 o'clock orbital there, you think, oh, they can get a slow clear. A lot of times that's just for an approach. There's also that whole problem where slow clear is really a flashing green, and the regular one is slow approach slow. Because in theory, if the bulb burned out, it would create it could lead to a false positive type situation. Oh, that wasn't the 17. That was the 15 switch CP. The 17's all the way down there. All right. What do we got? We got an MTA car in this. Just go with this. And this is the 24RA signal. Or not RA, it's 24R. Any chance I can get that thing going? God. And is this the same picture I took before? Did I just get a second one? So this one's a little closer. I can barely see the stuff there, so I'm gonna grab the shadow of it, the TSR board. There we go. Cool. Got it. Yeah, I know that I cut a bunch of these. a freshly painted signal looks so much nicer than we don't have. This is aluminum and doesn't have to be painted stuff these days. The silver paint looks better than the aluminum silver. The black, the high contrast black, looks beautiful. Really, really nice. And it's a shame, it's a shame that this stuff isn't painted anymore. So, a quick terminology thing. Hold on one second. I like to call, remember, the sort of established name for the markers, because they're not really, they're markers but not markers. I call them orbitals, because they surround the target. Here's your central target. I call this bit the basket, especially in the older versions where it would extend in front of the signal. So whenever I'm having to do picture descriptions, the orbitals go by a clock face. This is the 12 o'clock. Over here would be your 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock. And then the basket, the target. So that's how you describe what you're talking about with a B&O CPL. So another thing that I haven't really had to get in here to deal with before is how do I do signal orientation if I'm taking photos from both sides of the signal. So this is a signal has two eastbound angles. I always go direction and angles. So one has to be a primary angle, one has to be the secondary angle. So I say the angle and the opposite angle. Primary angle is going to be from the direction of the engineer facing it, so track side. The opposite, the op angle is going to be away from the track, unless there's some weird situation where that would be reversed. I might have reversed that by accident early on, but that's just typically how it works, or how I've been doing it for consistency. Here we have a really nice angle shot of the 24R. This is one of those things you really have to ask the operators how it worked, because there was a lot of variation in how you could do it without it being unsafe. Sometimes you'd have very strange locking arrangements. They would have, it's like, well, you can't do this route unless this signal is reversed, because, they want to have, if something came out of the yard, it would hit it, so you have to reverse this thing. There's a lot of stuff that, for some guy some signal engineer from 100 years ago thought, and it's not consistent. You'll find the same layout somewhere else, and it will not implement that practice. And in this case, because it has that thing, that orbital might not be used. It might get slow approach to the stop at Weaverton. It might get slow clear, what used to be slow clear, but slow approach slow over the stop. And that top orbital is only used for a stop and proceed. In fact, it might be for a stop and proceed. There's no restricting on this. So I think it's highly possible that upper orbital is for a stop and proceed, red with a marker, and then the other two are slow approach and slow approach slow. Because you're sitting there like, how do they have a clear route on down number 3 track if it's unsignaled? And they just don't, because you need that for stop and proceed. In fact, there's no other way to do a stop and proceed on this, or there's no restricting. Don't know why that's a stop and proceed, not restricting, but there you go. And now here we have the 17RA, and this one has no marker, but it has the restricting slash. So now that I've logically worked through it, I'm 90% sure that marker is not for approach or clear, but it's for stop and proceed. Here we have another close-up view of the lit 28R signal. And because it's from the opposite side of the tracks, it's the op angle. Here we have a side shot of the 24R and whatever RA. And we can also see the other main track all the way around and the remnant of the pole line. Not being used, but it's still a remnant. I'm going to make this picture half size here because it's going to explode. Just having those trees in there is going to explode the file size. And it doesn't add anything to the picture. And same thing goes for the side. This is not the opposite angle, it's the opposite side. I always like these, depending on where the sun is, I will get these silhouette shots. Today I make sure I do a below in front. I don't think I did it this time. In fact, I blew one today, as in I was out doing signal photos and I forgot to get the below shot on one of my targets. So my problem here is I never remember how to spell silhouette. So I always have to go and hit Google up. I'll hit that up for that. And now we have the rear of the 28R with West Brunswick right behind. I got to deal with this backlighting here. I don't like blowing out the sky, but sometimes that's what you got to do. Although I can pull out the old magic wand and brighten up the target there. Coming down to the last three here. There were a lot of manufacturers for these CPL junction boxes. There's old GRS, there's a new GRS, there's like an old GRS that looks that's huge. There's a bunch of newer ones. B&O is getting it. They had a supplier for them in the last, what I call the last gasp. There was a period where they were putting up replacements for derailments or planned. If there was going to be some sort of signal modification, they would sometimes throw up a new one. But they would use this sort of unmarked new junction box. I don't know where they got all the parts. These CPLs were bare in terms of parts. Each little lamp is its own thing. The back of it I call the cup. If you ever get up there, it looks like a little teacup. If it ever comes off, it's on a chain. You unlock it, you pull it off to replace the bulb, but it's on this little chain. It looks like a little cup attached to a water jug. And here we have the train that was cleared for. It's a westbound manifest with an SD 70 Mac, or it's a 60. Let's see, 4550. I think that's the 70 Mac block. Yep. And something 25 behind it. I don't think I got. I said I don't think I got the number right. There it is. 7325. Oh, that's a -8. Ooh. Man, I missed those. 7325. Is it still around? No. They are using that block for their AC 4400 rebuilds. 7325, and I know it's a -8, even though it's got the small radiator, but it's got the wavy trucks, the ones that look like they're on the ones that came on the E60s. There are some early -9s on CSX that have the wavy trucks, but they are not to be missed. So the wavy truck -9s, they do have some. The wavy truck -9s are the 9000 series. They were almost pre-production. I don't know how many they have left. They had about 50 of them. 9000. Yeah, it looks like they had about 52. But they, I believe, have the -8 trucks. So here we have the 15 switch, WB tower, the signals. Most of the signals. I'm missing one, but might not really care about it. This is a horribly backlit, so I don't know what I'm going to really do here. All right, let me see. What did I do this with this originally? Oh, I really brightened it up. So I guess I should brighten it. That's really brightening it. Oops. Yeah, I cut the entire switch out, too. So that's not a good thing. Alright, so what do we got? I'm going to sneeze here in a second. All right. Okay. All right. I'm gonna honestly put these locomotives first because they're neat. That SD70 Mac is beautifully painted. So it's 4050 plus 72. Oh, it's 7325. Nah, now I forgot. 7325. I was right. Okay, let's do this again. Save as. Okay, 7325 plus WB Tower 15 switch plus the A5 and the points. And then the westbound CPL signals rear. Okay, that seemed to get anything. I just got to resave it at the regular quality. And we have our last photo of the day of 4550 charging through West Brunswick Interlocking. Very well. I mean, I don't know. This must have just been out chopped or something. This is a an original SD70 Mac for the 90s. It's not a tier 2 one. This isn't the flared radiators. So this would have come online in 1997. So this would have just probably come out of its 10-year overhaul. Just as a rule of thumb, a mainline diesel will get about 20. You can expect a full life out of a diesel is 20 years. You can extend that with a rebuild, but at 10 years they're going to need an overhaul minimum. So Amtrak's P42 DCs came in about they're going on 25 now. They've all been rebuilt a billion times. But that's the rule of thumb for did I get good life out of this this thing. So this is right on schedule for built in 97, got a rebuild about in 2007, and probably just came out of the shops. All right, that's it for today. We're going to have... I'll be back tomorrow to finish up WB. Then we're going to have... one of the days we'll swing by Shepherdstown Junction, and then we're going to hit Hancock. So I think that if you just care about Hancock Tower... it'll be probably on Tuesday, Wednesday. If you care for everything else, you can keep showing up for the whole thing. Okie doke. All right. Let me see if we have any last questions here. Yeah, that's what I heard, that it was East Brunswick, Weaverton, and Harper's. I guess if that's 90, I guess, well, who controlled Pointer Rocks? Because I thought QN had Germantown Junction, and it was all ABS 251 between Germantown Junction and Pointer Rocks. So maybe it was the old main line. Whatever dispatcher had CTC on the old main line, I guess, did Pointer Rocks. That would make sense. By that point, the old main line was CTC, and it would have been on that CTC thing there. Yeah, that makes sense. Or does it? I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what operator would have been on. I mean, I guess you would have been the Met sub dispatcher. Yeah, I mean, which dispatcher did the old main line? I mean. That's a good point. Let me see. If they were under the control of the same dispatcher, they've got to tell you who dispatches this on this. I know it's going to be different, but it'd be good to just be interesting to see who is dispatching this. Got to be someone here that tells me what it is. Oh, like somewhere up top, I guess. Yes, here we go. Yeah. AU dispatcher, cap sub, met sub, old main line sub. So even if the Metropolitan wasn't CTC, the old main line would have been, and the AU dispatcher would have had pointer locks on their display, or whatever they were using at the time. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Anyway, B&O operator guy, thanks for coming in. Sorry you missed a bunch of it. I'll get this recording up as soon as I can. Tomorrow we will have more West Brunswick stuff. We're going to be going across the tracks to the south side of the interlocking on main track number 2 and covering that. And then it's on to... we will also have a stop at Harper's real quick. Let me just see what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be hitting tomorrow. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to get everything through Harper's. 117. Yeah, I'm going to do everything through Harper's tomorrow, or going to try to. It's going to be a little bit overtime. And then the last 2 days, that'll give me 110 photos. So yeah, I gotta go. I'll go through Harper's tomorrow. Then we'll do Shepherdstown Junction on Tuesday. And then Hancock. The first Hancock is gonna be split over 2 nights. All right. Anyway, thank you folks for tuning in. I will see you all tomorrow. All right. Have a great night.